The Galactic Safety Council had exactly one rule about humans that every spacefaring species learned during their first orientation. In an emergency, always run to or away from the closest human. Never hesitate, never question which direction. Just pick one and commit. K'thresh, a young Valorian diplomat on his first deep space assignment, had dismissed this as typical xenophobic nonsense. Humans were pleasant enough, if a bit intense. And he'd worked alongside 3 of them aboard the merchant vessel Stellar Drift for 6 standard months without incident. They told jokes, shared meals, and seemed utterly ordinary. Then the collision happened. A rogue mining drone, malfunctioning and careening through uncharted space, struck the Stellar Drift mid-transit. Alarms shrieked as the ship shuddered violently. K'thresh felt his 4 legs buckle as artificial gravity fluctuated. Emergency lights bathed the corridor in crimson, and somewhere behind the walls, something vital groaned and ruptured. "Hull breach, Deck 7, the ship's AI announced with mechanical calm. "Explosive decompression in 30 seconds. K'thresh's training evaporated. His minds, all 3 of them, went blank with terror. Valorians were a cautious species, evolved on a peaceful world where the most dangerous predator was a herbivore with an attitude problem. Panic was his natural state during crisis. Then he saw her. Commander Jessica Chen stood at the corridor intersection, her dark eyes scanning a handheld display even as the deck beneath her tilted at an alarming angle. She was human average height, built lean with graying hair pulled back in a tight bun. Nothing about her screamed dangerous or heroic. She looked like someone's tired aunt. 20 seconds to breach, the AI continued. Jessica's head snapped up. Her eyes locked onto K'thresh, then swept the corridor, cataloging every detail in a heartbeat. 6 other crew members were visible, 2 Xanthari, 1 Culaxian, 3 more humans emerging from the engine room. "You 3, Jessica barked at the humans, pointing toward the engine room. "Bypass the emergency seals on Deck 8. Reroute life support from the cargo bay." She turned to the Xanthari. "Get to the bridge. Tell Captain Moros we need immediate deceleration. Full reverse thrust authorization Chen Delta 7. No one moved. They stared at her, frozen in the same fear that paralyzed K'thresh. Jessica's expression didn't harden. Instead, something stranger happened. She smiled. It wasn't warm or reassuring. It was the smile of someone who'd already calculated the odds and decided they were acceptable. 10 seconds, said the AI. "Now." Jessica's voice cracked like a plasma whip. The spell broke. The crew scattered, each racing toward their assigned task. K'thresh remained frozen until Jessica's hand clamped onto his upper shoulder, surprisingly strong for such a small appendage. "With me, diplomat. You're my runner." She dragged him toward the breach site, which made absolutely no sense whatsoever. Every instinct K'thresh possessed screamed that they should be running in the opposite direction. But Jessica's grip was iron and his legs moved before his minds could properly object. They reached Deck 7's main corridor just as the breach alarm hit 0. The hull didn't explode. Instead, a 3-meter section peeled away with a screech of tortured metal, and the void beyond began inhaling atmosphere with a hungry roar. K'thresh felt himself sliding toward oblivion, his claws scrabbling uselessly against the deck plates. Jessica hooked one arm through an emergency handhold, her other hand still locked on K'thresh. With her free hand, and K'thresh would later swear this was impossible, she yanked an emergency patch kit from the wall storage, armed it, and hurled it toward the breach. The patch kit was designed for small punctures, maybe hand-sized holes. The breach was enormous. The kit exploded in a foam that expanded faster than physics should allow, flash hardening into a temporary seal that wouldn't hold for long but didn't need to. The decompression slowed from catastrophic to merely dangerous. "Seal won't last 5 minutes, Jessica said, checking her display. "We need—" The Stellar Drift lurched violently as the reverse thrusters fired. K'thresh heard Captain Moros's voice over the intercom, announcing emergency deceleration. The ship groaned, protesting the abuse, but it slowed, which meant the rogue mining drone was now overtaking them. Jessica saw it on her display before K'thresh even understood what was happening. The drone would strike them again, this time amidships, right where the crew quarters were located. "Get to the escape pods," K'thresh whispered, all 3 of his minds finally agreeing on something. "We have to abandon ship." Jessica wasn't listening. She was already running toward the airlock, fingers flying across her wrist display. K'thresh followed. Not because he wanted to, but because every survival instinct he possessed had suddenly reversed polarity. The rule echoed in his mind: run to or away from the closest human. He was running toward. Jessica cycled the airlock and grabbed a thruster pack from the emergency locker. She didn't put it on. Instead, she magnetized her boots to the deck, activated the outer door, which should have been impossible without depressurizing first. But she'd apparently overridden every safety protocol the ship possessed, and stood in the opening as atmosphere shrieked past her. The drone appeared in the viewport, tumbling end over end, its cutting lasers still firing randomly into the void. Jessica threw the thruster pack. It wasn't a desperate toss. It was a precisely calculated trajectory that would have made a Zenthari artillery officer weep with envy. The pack sailed into space, its thrusters activating on proximity to the drone. It struck dead center, and the resulting explosion wasn't large, maybe equivalent to a standard mining charge. But it was enough. The drone's trajectory shifted by crucial degrees. Instead of striking the crew quarters, it tumbled past the Stellar Drift's port side, close enough that Kathresh could see the frost forming on its damaged hull, but not close enough to cause another collision. Jessica sealed the airlock, deactivated her magnetic boots, and calmly checked her display again. Temporary patch holding. Engineering has rerouted life support. Hull integrity at 63% but stable. All crew accounted for. She finally looked at Kathresh, who had collapsed against the bulkhead, his respiratory spiracles working overtime. "You okay, diplomat?" Kathresh stared at her with all 6 of his eyes. "You just did my job," Jessica finished. She offered him a hand up, which he took with a trembling appendage. "Welcome to working with humans, Kathresh. We're either the solution or the problem, sometimes both, but we're never boring." Later, after repairs and recovery, Kathresh filed his incident report with the Galactic Safety Council. He added a footnote to the famous rule about humans and emergencies. The footnote read, "The direction you run matters less than you think. Somehow you'll end up where you need to be." The council approved the addendum unanimously. They'd all heard similar stories. Every species had. Because humans didn't just survive emergencies. They grabbed them by the throat, calculated impossible odds, and then cheerfully ignored the mathematics in favor of what Jessica Chen would call acceptable outcomes. Kathresh never forgot that day, nor the lesson it taught him. In an emergency, the closest human wouldn't just save your life. They'd make you wonder why you ever thought the universe was a dangerous place, when clearly it should be terrified of them.